What is the word sport short for?
How did the names football, soccer, and rugby play out around the world?
And what do Brits mean when we say something just isn't cricket?
Join the club as we kick around some sports terms on this episode of Words Unravelled. It's sure to be a home run, a slam dunk, and a hole-in-one.
Welcome to another Words Unravelled. I'm Rob Watts from the YouTube channel Rob Words.
And I'm Jess Ferris, author of etymology books, including Useless Etymology. And today we're in for a sporting good time as we play ball here on Words Unravelled. Is that not right?
Yes, I'm feeling game, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So how do we kick off this episode all about sport with a slight sort of bent towards ball sports this time? Because there's a lot of sports, so we've got to focus on something.
We should probably start with the origin of the word sport, right? I don't know this one.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're in for a surprise, I think, because it's a doozy, I think, the origin of the word sport. Because the word sport is actually short for another word. It's short for the word disport.
What?
Which means to distract you. It means to carry you away. You can think of the port at the end of sport as, you know, when you transport something. Well, to disport something is to distract someone, to take them away from whatever it is that they're normally doing. And the first sports were not as we think of sports. They were any sort of pastime was a sport. For example, Chaucer uses it in 1386 in The Man of Law's Tale. He says, "To roam for to wend, were it for chapmanhood or for disport." So what he's saying there is we're going to go to Rome, whether it is to be a salesperson, which is what a chapman is, or just for the sake of it, to get away, to disport ourselves.
It's like a diversion. It's the same notion as something that diverts your attention, right?
Yeah, away from what?
Work, right. Anything.
Family. It's still doing that, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
But its meaning has fallen in line with the Latin ludus, which is more of a sort of a word just meaning a game or play. And that's what sport kind of means now. But I had a revelation while looking up more about the word ludus. And that is that the word ludicrous is also derived from ludus. Yeah, ludicrous originally meant pertaining to a sport or a game, and the way we use it now is sort of figuratively. It's to say, oh, you know, he's playing at it. It's ridiculous. It's a farce. It's like it's all just a game to him. It's ludicrous.
That's fabulous.
And yeah, it's in the same group as fabulous, right? Being actually related
right.
to the word fable.
Right, exactly.
By the way, Jess, I should mention that this episode is sponsored by Huel, who are giving viewers of Words Unravelled a 15% discount if they use the code WU15 via our QR code or the special link in the description of this video. We'll talk a bit more about it later. So let's talk about some sports.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite sport to observe or play?
Yeah, it's football. It's soccer.
And then you are a runner too, this is not the subject of today's conversation, but as a sports person.
I was going to say there's no balls involved, but it depends.
Well, not for me.
not for you, Jess. Yeah. I did that one. I did that to myself, that one. Yeah, but I was careful to say football/soccer so as to not confuse the game we play with our feet with the game that Americans play with their hands.
Right, because there's both nominal and historical and gameplay differences, but overlap between American football, soccer, association football, and rugby.
Football is a very, very vague term. It means a game that involves wrestling a ball off your opponent and getting it to a goal. A goal originally being a line rather than, you know, like anything like a net or a frame. It's just a goal is a line. It's a destination. Quite, you know, that's what the etymology dictates as well. And the word football has been used for these kinds of sports since, you know, at least the 1400s. There's a game that is still played near my hometown in the village of Ashbourne in Derbyshire that they call Shrovetide football. They play it every Pancake Day, as we call it, every Shrove Tuesday and the days around it. And all it involves is just basically beating the heck out of one another to get this huge ball from one river at one end of the village to the river at the other end of the village. And they call it football. But it's brutal. In fact, the sport has been banned in the past. There's an extract from the Records of Parliament of Scotland from 1424 that says, "The king forbids that any man play at the football under the pain of," and then it ends rather sort of abruptly. I don't know what it's the pain of. But also, like, I found another quote from 1531, "Football, wherein is nothing but beastly fury and extreme violence."
I saw that one. There are references to words similar to this as far back as the 12th century, and some of them are specific games that you play with your feet. Some of them involve all of your body, but some references indicate that they're just games that you play on your feet versus on a horse. Or
right. Is that what it is? Is that you're playing it on your feet?
Not always. That's not always consistent, because that feels like it comes from quite a place of privilege, right? Like, not everyone had a horse and could play games on a horse. But game, of course, being originally a reference to hunting.
And so we have now all these different types of football. We have obviously American football, Canadian football, Australian football, Gaelic football, rugby football, as it was originally called, which is, rugby is just the sport of football played in the style that they played it at Rugby School, which is a boarding school in Warwickshire. Actually, no, they didn't codify the ball had to be oval shaped instead of round until the 1890s, which is kind of interesting. Yeah,
that is interesting.
But I welcome and I use the word soccer more often than many of my British friends appreciate.
Is it because you know a lot of Americans?
It's not. It's because the word is there. It's more precise than football, as we've established. And, it isn't an Americanism, though it is more commonly used in America, perhaps, than it is in Britain. The word comes out of the Football Association, established in Britain in, I think, is it the 1880s, maybe the 1870s, to set up the first leagues and to enable teams to play from all over the country. And the sock there is from ASOC Association, ASOCA. And it's a term that they started using, for example, at Oxford University to describe the game played based on the rules of the Football Association.
And the shortened versions became rugger versus soccer for the two different association football versus rugby football.
That's right. You had soccer, rugger, and togger at Oxford University. Togger is, I think, a boat used in one of the boat races.
And then footer was also an alternative to soccer, right?
Yeah, that goes back even further than soccer, calling it footer. I don't know why we're not calling it footer. We call it footy very, very commonly. No one calls it footer. You'd sound like you were really trying very hard to fit in if you call it footer.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyone for footer? Yeah, you'd be laughed out the pub.
American football was originally, inconsistently called gridiron football. The Rutgers-Princeton League played under rules closer to association football, and then the Harvard-McGill 2-game series imported rugby-style handling into U.S. colleges, with the games helping to codify the difference between association football, rugby football, and American gridiron football, so named because the lines on the field look like a cooking gridiron.
Ah, right. Okay, I had wondered what that gridiron thing referred to. I think I'd got it in my head that it was maybe something to do with the helmets or something like that.
The lines on the field as you advance play down the field toward the end zone.
It makes perfect sense. It does differentiate it from other forms of football. And rugby itself, is divided up as well into rugby league and rugby union based upon which rules you play. The rugby league comes from the name of the Northern Rugby Football League. And, to this day, the sport of rugby league is much more popular in the north of England than in the south. And then you've also got rugby union, which is based around the rules of the Rugby Football Union, and which I didn't realize was entirely amateur until 1995. I'm sure I've got memories of watching professional rugby union before then, but I don't know, maybe there was some sort of workaround that they were doing. And the difference is, you've got 13 players in rugby league, 15 in rugby union. There's a 6 tackle rule in rugby league, quicker restarts in rugby union. They do a lot of faffing with rucks and mauls and scrums, and the amount of points you get for a try are also different between them. You get 4 points in rugby league and 5 points in rugby union. It's called a try, by the way. You didn't used to get any points for a try. You got points for the conversion of the try, which is when, after you've managed to get the ball over the line and you've popped it on the floor, you then get to kick the ball through the posts, and that is called a conversion. And that is when you used to get the points. So that scoring a try is scoring yourself an opportunity to try and get those points.
A lot of terms in American football are just straight up lifted from rugby, like touchdown, conversion, safety.
I mean, I haven't heard touchdown used in rugby, in modern rugby. So perhaps it's a word from the past. The line is still called touch, but actually that's the lines at the side rather than the lines at the end, ahead of the end zone.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, we don't call it.
You mentioned scrum, which is also directly related to the line of scrimmage in American football, which is cool. The line of scrimmage is the invisible line where each play begins, separating the two teams. It's from the earlier rugby term scrummage or scrum, where the play started with the players packed tightly together to try to gain possession of the ball. Scrummage is a 15th century variation of skirmish, which is cool.
No way! Oh, that's fantastic. So a scrum is a skirmish. It's a coming together. It's a little battle.
Exactly.
Ah, that's a doozy. That's a great one, Jess. I've never played rugby in my life.
Oh.
There you go. Mine was because I went to school in the Midlands. We were sort of right amidst this sort of north-south divide, a rugby league and rugby union, and I was just playing football. Just football. We just play football all the time. Football. Cricket a bit in the summer. Football.
I also played football when I was quite a bit younger. I'm sorry, I played soccer when I was a bit younger.
No, I like it. Call it football.
And basketball and softball, things like that.
I was a goalkeeper, which is the position you take up if you can't really kick.
Hey, but you take a beating, right?
Oh yeah, I did. It's amazing my face is in any shape at all, to be honest. Balls I've taken.
One of my favorite things about watching football, which I watch football. My spouse watches basically every NFL game during the season. And therefore, I have been in the room for a great deal of pro football games in American football games. And it is full of terms that sound naughty. So if you're only half listening, it gets really entertaining, like tight ends, going deep, bump and run, spread formation, illegal touching, good penetration, a game of inches, and then pounding it down their throats. Which I just wrote down from the past several games we watched.
Sorry, you're sitting there with a notepad waiting for dirty terms to come up.
Why wait?
I just think you were. I think that's exactly what you were doing.
American football has introduced a surprising number of idioms into our everyday parlance, including, surprisingly, game plan, first cited in 1939. Obviously, game plans existed, but it didn't become standard, like, corporate language until 1939, when football, especially a game surrounding the Bruins, was cited in the Los Angeles Times. Playbooks, although they date back to actual books full of theatrical plays, didn't become a corporate term until after football introduced them.
Right, so a play is like a tactic for a specific set piece.
Yes, exactly. Running interference, punting, like punting decisions to somebody else, sidelining, Hail Marys, moving the goalposts, though you could argue that's from a number of sports. Running a blitz or media blitz mostly didn't happen until after football started using it. Calling an audible, that's a change at the line after reading the defense, which is like figuratively a change of plan in response to new information. Kickoff, things like that.
No, I'm not allowing American football to have kickoff. I'm blowing the final whistle on that one. To be fair, it might well be.
You're right. Soccer is rather your version of soccer, your version of football is the original source of like a kickoff call.
All right, to kick something off.
Like the figurative use of kickoff, though it seems to be mostly because it is primarily an American corporatism. American football has had a greater influence on its popularity in corporate environments. This episode is sponsored by Huel, which is a mashup of the words human and fuel. And that makes sense because I just had a smoothie with it.
Aha, and how was it?
It was filling, honestly. I'm not a breakfast person, but I need to consume something before my daily run and before trying to record a coherent podcast episode. And this stuff is great for just that. You've tried it too?
Yeah, absolutely. I've used it. Oh, I've got my shaker here. I've used it when I've been preparing for marathons in the past, but I've been using it in recent weeks. I have it every lunchtime as I embark upon my Bob's battle against the dad bod to try and lose a bit of the weight after I've put on quite a lot since the baby was born. And Huel's a very good and tasty way of knowing exactly how many calories and exactly what I'm putting into my body. I'm also really into the Black Edition ready-to-drink bottles, which I can have when I'm out and about on the go as well.
Do you have a favorite flavor?
Yes, the chocolate one, which is the classic. But yeah, give yourself a little chocolatey treat at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
My husband, Drew, and I both like the salted caramel flavor by itself and the vanilla flavor for making fruit smoothies, which he makes almost every day before his workout using frozen berries and pineapples and apples picked from our local orchard. And it keeps me going through a few miles of running and another few hours of talking about etymology.
Well, if you'd like to try Huel just like us, Huel is giving Words Unravelled viewers a 15% discount if you use the code WU15. So that's Words Unravelled 15. If you go to huel.com/WU15, that's huel.com/WU15. Now, back to the words. Can I get round to cricket now?
Let's hop right in.
Oh, there you go. You're just going to bat that one away. Actually, we don't know where the word cricket came from. So actually, it's not a very good subject for me to raise in an etymology podcast. We're not sure. There are a lot of theories around it, but it's not certain. So French, for example, has a word criquet, which means a piece of wood, but etymologists are convinced it doesn't come from that. The leading theory is that it comes from another English word, cricket, spelt exactly the same, that meant a stool. The idea being that the wicket, so the three stumps with the bails on top, looks a bit like a stool, I suppose a three-legged stool. And there was a sport called stool ball that predates cricket, which is very similar to cricket, but you were guarding a stool. It was mostly played by women.
Like an actual stool?
An actual stool, yeah. So you had to stop the ball being hit. One of my favourite facts about cricket, when I think of it, Martin, who edits this, told me that his parents told him that you could not be out on the first ball in cricket, which you can, by the way. You can arrive, someone hits the wicket, and you're out. You've got to walk off. But he was told by his parents that couldn't happen, just to keep it fair, because I don't know, Martin's not the sportiest of man. I'm not going to have a go at Martin, but he's got many skills, but I reckon that particular sport isn't one of them. And he said he only found out much, much later when playing with other normal people that isn't a rule of cricket, and you can get out on the first ball. Found out the hard way. Anyway, sorry, I completely diverted, but that seems like the most likely thing, that the word cricket comes from this earlier use of the word to mean a stool. But other theories, there's this old English noun which was critch, which means a crutch, and almost certainly is the source of the word crutch. But again, etymologists don't reckon that it's very likely that you can get from the ch sound at the end of crutch to having cricket therefore be a derivative of it. I thought that maybe croquet was related to it. No, it's not. So croquet is actually, as a name for a sport, way, way more recent than cricket. You'd be surprised to find that croquet, no one's playing croquet before the 19th century. It ends up in England via Ireland. And croquet is just a dialect form of the word crochet, which refers to the little hooks that you crochet with. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Oh, no. So you're saying it's for threading the ball through the thing. And now you say that, I think you're right. I was thinking it was a reference to the mallets, but no, I think that makes...
That would make sense.
That makes far more sense. It's because you're threading those little loops, aren't you? Yeah, I like that much more. That actually ends up linking it to another sport that we'll talk about shortly with an obviously French name. But I just wanted to raise the sort of idiomatic use of cricket that we have in England, where we refer to something as not being cricket. You know, if someone isn't really playing by the rules or doing things in the right spirit, we'll say, well, it's just not cricket. I thought, so where did that come from? But the phrase actually caught on in reference to cricket itself. So cricket players would say if someone did something that didn't seem like it was well within the rules, they would say, well, that's simply not cricket. I found this quote from 1867. Do not ask the umpire unless you think the batsman is out. It is not cricket to keep asking the umpire questions.
It's like a bad sportsmanship to go outside the rules. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And then in a terribly, terribly English way, we apply that to everyday life in this sort of public schoolboy way of thinking everything's a game. It's like, well, you're not playing by the rules. It's simply not cricket.
I like it. That's adorable. And obviously, cricket is not related to the name of the insect, which is named after its call.
The thing you are actually guarding is not a stool, it is a wicket. And the word wicket is the same as the word for, you know, in like a castle door, big castle door, there's a smaller door in it for people to just go in and out of when it's closed.
Yeah, so you don't have to like creak open the big ones.
Yeah. It's called a wicket.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
That's neat.
The wicket in a game of cricket is so cool because it looks a bit like a little gate, because you'd also have it in gates. You'd have a little gate inside a much bigger gate. And the modern French form of the word that comes from, so it comes from wicket, right, which is Norman French. So the modern French version of it is guichet, which is the modern French word for a ticket office, basically, for a toll booth or
another little gate.
Another little gate.
Is it actually a thing people say, the sticky wicket?
Yeah. Yeah, you're playing a sticky wicket. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. A little idiom there.
Yeah, we have other phrases that come from it, like to be hit for six, you know, is to be astounded or overwhelmed. But that's what happens if you hit the ball and it goes all the way over the boundary without hitting the floor on the way there. You get 6 runs for that. You get 4 runs if it makes it to the boundary, but it does hit the floor. So to be hit for 4 would be, you know, less astounding, but no one ever says it.
Should we move on to lacrosse?
That's where I was hoping we would go next, because that is the one that's sort of related to that crochet word.
The sport that became lacrosse was invented and played by Indigenous peoples of North America long before European contact. The Iroquois, Huron, Ojibwe, and Choctaw had different variations. The Indigenous names were included. The Iroquois game of, and excuse me to everyone for this pronunciation, but the Iroquois called the game Diyun Shi Guax, meaning they bump hips for like bodily contact as part of the game, because it's quite a high contact game in its original forms. There was a similar word in Ojibwe, not a similar word, similar meaning, a gadaway, I believe is how you would say it. And then the Mohawk term Dewa Aladun translated as it has a dual net, and then Choctaw called it Ishtaboli, which means little brother of war, which I like a lot.
Oh, I do like that.
Mm-hmm. But the French word lacrosse comes from lacrosse, the stick or the staff. And supposedly this was from Jesuit missionary Jean de Brébeuf, who was the first to record the term in writing when he described the Huron people playing a stick and ball game like this in 1637. And he compared the curved sticks that they were using to a bishop's staff or crozier and called it le jeu de la crosse, the game of the stick or the bishop's staff.
You know, one of the things I noticed while researching these is that quite a lot of sports are just called the stick or something along those lines. Another one is billiards. Billard is a French word for a small stick. Yeah. It's a diminutive. It's actually got that the ARD at the end of it is one of your odd words that you like.
It does diminutive occasionally.
Yeah. I should talk about while I've mentioned billiards. You actually asked me before we started recording. You said a friend had wanted to know where the word snooker came from.
Yes.
Is that a sport that's played much in the States?
No, I had never heard of it. Jason Noddy is my friend who asked for this. He is a sports journalist.
Ah, right. Well, it's played on it's I would say it was like pool insofar as you're hitting resin balls around with a stick, and there are 6 holes, but it's a much, much bigger table that you're playing on, and you have to alternate between potting the red balls in a triangle and color balls, and the color balls are worth more points, so you want to pot the red balls so you can get onto the color balls, get extra points, and keep the longest break going possible. It was invented as a combination of 2 sports. One was called black pool, where you had to pot colored balls in a certain order, and the other one was called pyramids, where you had a triangle of balls, which anyone who has seen snooker will know that that's very much part of the game now. And indeed, it's a part of pool now as well. That's how the game starts, doesn't it? But where does the name come from? Well, snooker was invented in the British Raj. It was invented in India. And supposedly the name snooker was given to this game by a specific man. His name was Colonel Sir Neville Chamberlain. That is not the Neville Chamberlain who would
I was going to say
British Prime Minister, although they only died 4 years apart. So, he could have been, he did well. But no, while he was in Jabalpur with the Devonshire Regiment, he was playing this game with someone who he felt was doing a really rubbish job. He was playing it like he hadn't really been schooled on it. And a term that was being used by the British Army in those days to describe a new recruit who was rather green was a snooker.
Ah, very nice.
So it became known as snooker pool or snookers pool, and now we just call it snooker. Pool, by the way, all the games called pool, the word is related to the word pool, as in when you pool your pot. It's the combined stakes. Exactly. Essentially, it's the name for the prize that you get at the end of it. So, which is interesting because pool has in the past meant a stick as well, but in this occasion, pool, it means a pole, right? But in this occasion, that's one sport that is not named after a stick. But snooker is named after a green cadet. Another game that we can perhaps talk about, golf.
Let's see. So it's a Scottish word, and what it means is debated a bit. It probably means to strike or cuff, and is probably from a root meaning club or bat. So again, one of our games named after the stick. It's also related to words for like bell clappers and maces and clubs in various Germanic languages. We have records of this game being played as early as the 13th century, and it became more formalized and was banned in some cases between the 1400s and the 1600s.
Yeah, again, I found a quote so these are the Scottish Acts of James IV, and it refers to footballs. So it spells balls with a W, which people who know, for example, Glaswegian accents, that's something that they still do. They still say ball instead of ball. It says footballs, golf, or other such unprofitable sports.
But we also have a record of him purchasing his own golf ballis and clubbis in 1502, which was one of his first royal purchases on record.
Quite the hypocrites. One rule for them and literally a law for everyone else.
Mary Queen of Scots apparently played golf quite a bit too, and also the other lawn game Pall Mall or Pall Mall, depending on who you're talking to. Yeah.
I didn't know that was a lawn game. Okay.
Yes, indeed. Neither did I.
Now we know.
The first rule books, it seems, came from the 1600s and 1700s. The articles and laws in playing at golf are the oldest surviving rules, and they also introduced terms like tee and hole and stroke and club and ball.
Oh, very good. I was looking up bogey, which is the word for when you hit 1 over par. So par, by the way, par is quite a simple etymology, right? It's related to the word pair. It means equal. When you're trying to achieve par, you're trying to achieve equality with the ideal player, basically. But a bogey was originally par, right? You were aiming for bogey. Why was par called bogey? Well, there's a very amusing anecdote, which you perhaps also have there, Jess, because I think we're looking at the same sources on this one. But there's a story told in 1908 recounting a game of golf back in 1890 between Dr. Brown and Major Wellman. The system of playing against the ground score, which meant par, was new to Major Wellman, and he exclaimed, thinking of the song of the moment, so this was a song about the bogeyman, that this mysterious and well-nigh invincible opponent, the notional opponent that you're playing against when you're trying to beat par, was a regular bogeyman. The name caught on in Great Yarmouth, and today bogey is one of the most feared opponents on all the courses that acknowledge him.
Ooh.
Yeah, there you go. So why does it now mean 1 over par? Well, I can tell you. It's because of a change of attitude, basically. Par is the ideal player, and bogey, the bogeyman, is a notional everyman, basically. So like the average competent player in the club, but not the ideal.
And then how do we get these birds all over the golf course? We got the birdie, the eagle, the albatross, the condor.
I only know about birdie, but I assume the rest of them kind of just stem from that.
Bigger and bigger feats scaled to the bird.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're right to just say bird, because bird was the word before birdie. It was referred to as a bird getting 1 under par. And that's just because I think the word bird was a term for something that was really clever, really good, really smart. Yeah. If someone was bird, it meant they were unusually bright. And so to get 1 under par, that's bird. That's birdie.
Fine and dandy. Caddy is cool. It comes from the French cadet, which just means a junior person. Same deal.
Yeah, and they would pronounce it cadet, which is very close, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. And if I'm understanding this correctly, 4 is a shortened form of for caddy, the spotter ahead on the hole. So 4 means like look out in front, obviously.
Which is what you shout when your ball goes awry.
Right.
Have you played much golf, Jess?
No, I mean mini golf, sure.
Oh man, saw that amazing mini golf club at Niagara Falls just as I was about to leave. I missed it. They had a dinosaur mini golf. I didn't get to go to it.
Of course, golf has introduced some fun idioms that we use in other contexts, like par for the course, below par, tee up, a mulligan, which in golf is an informal second chance off the tee. The figurative, like, let's take a mulligan on that project, was borrowed from the sport. And there are a bunch of confusing origin tales about that one.
Jess, can you tell me some more about your mysterious American sports, please?
We got to talk about baseball because very little else is American as baseball and apple pie. But the term dates back to 1744 in England. The first baseball appears in a pretty little pocketbook published by John Newbery in London with an illustration of kids playing a game that in the illustration is called baseball. And it says, the ball once struck off, away flies the boy to the next destined post and then home with joy. Cute little rhyme to go with it. The first recorded game of baseball took place in 1749 in Surrey and featured the Prince of Wales before he became George III as a player.
We didn't play baseball at school, but we used to play something called rounders, which is very similar. You hold a much smaller bat and you hold it in one hand.
Yes.
Give it a whack. Do you play that in the States, or is it all baseball and softball? You have softball as well.
Rounders did stick around into American history before baseball was codified, but no, typically we play baseball or softball. Interestingly, just a couple of decades after baseball, the first games of baseball as they're documented, we have reference to girls and women playing baseball too. In Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey, it's mentioned that Catherine prefers baseball and cricket to books, which is kind of a fun detail. In America, our first references to baseball, the first ever reference, is in a diary from a Princeton student who spells it baseball, like basting a turkey, which is probably an eggcorn because it's in his diary. But we also have records of it being called baseball elsewhere, baseball, town ball, round ball, rounders throughout New York and the Great Lakes region until the early 19th century. And in New York, the two early baseball clubs were the Gotham Baseball Club, which played a game that was similar, was sometimes called round ball or town ball. similar to rounders. And then in 1837, one of the members of the Gotham Club drew up rules to make it a mature and adult sport. Alexander Cartwright, after that, took those rules and created the Knickerbocker Baseball Club, which we've talked about Knickerbocker before being a vestige of, well, in this case, the club was named after the Knickerbocker Fire Engine Company, but all of the word Knickerbocker is found throughout New York history because of Washington Irving's satirical works about the Dutch in New York City, and his character, Diedrich Knickerbocker, is the character he played. Or wrote under, so to speak. And he wore those distinctive trousers, which became baseball pants too. They're, baggy around the knee.
Presumably there were many failed attempts to popularize baseball in Britain, but one of them happened in my hometown of Derby. The football team I support is called Derby County, and for most of its history, it played at a stadium called the Baseball Ground, which was where one of these failed attempts to introduce baseball to an English audience was centered. Can I talk about football team suffixes? I have a whole thing here, really common ones. People will be aware of Manchester United. Lots of football teams soccer teams have United at the end. And that is because all of those teams at one point were multiple teams that have converged and have become one, and they have
consolidation.
United. Yeah, exactly. In the past decade, when there were periods of dissatisfaction at Manchester United over the ownership of the club, the fans started wearing these red and green scarves, and that was a nod to the precursor clubs that eventually became, one of which became Manchester United. You also have Wanderers, Bolton Wanderers, Wolverhampton Wanderers. These were clubs that did not have their own ground, so they would have to play at different place each time. They would have to wander. But also you've got Rovers, who were in exactly the same position, Bristol Rovers, Blackburn Rovers. They didn't have their own ground. They were having to move around. They were having to rove. Then you've got Rangers, as in like Glasgow Rangers. But I think the explanation for that is that they selected people from a broad geographical range. They picked their players from long distances. And what else have you got? You have clubs with Athletic at the end, Oldham Athletic, Wigan Athletic. These were clubs that were spawned from athletics clubs, a bit like Derby was spawned from a cricket club originally. And then you've got others that end with Albion, like West Bromwich Albion. And Albion is that word for Britain, and it's just like a grand name to give them, a patriotic name.
I bet there are a lot of generalized idioms and whatnot from football, from soccer in your neck of the woods, yeah?
God, I mean, there must be millions of them, and now I'm on the spot. I can't think of a single one. Isn't that silly?
Baseball is the big one over here. In the ballpark, big leagues, heavy hitter, off base, right off the bat, Bronx cheer, throw a curveball, step up to the plate, touch base, 3 strikes, cover your bases, home stretch, on the ball, hard ball, screwball.
And I'm trying to think of ones that would be would lend themselves to idioms, like a yellow card or a red card or being offside. Or, okay, so kicked into touch we do have, but I think that might come from rugby rather than football. It's funny, why aren't so many terms from football in broader British parlance? Maybe we're not so quick to adopt sporting idioms as you are in the States. And maybe it's because corporate culture drives a lot of that, and the corporate culture in the States is just a bit stronger.
It might also just be that it's older and less structured. Its history was less structured. It was go play with the ball,
And I could immediately think of cricket-based idioms, but I'm struggling for football-based ones. Isn't that funny?
Briefly, before we go, could I talk about basketball? It was invented in 1891 by a Canadian-American physical education instructor with the YMCA school in Springfield, Massachusetts. James Naismith is his name, and he created this game to occupy students during winter using a soccer ball and 2 peach baskets that were nailed to the gym balcony. Nice. And he says in his book that Frank Mahan, one of the players in the first game, insisted that it must have a name and suggested the name Naismith Ball. And I laughed and I told him I thought the name would kill any game. So Frank then said, why not call it basketball? And I said, we have a basket and a ball, and that seems like it would be a good name for it. And it was in this way that basketball was named, which I love.
I'd be curious to know whether basketball or netball came first. Are you aware of netball? Imagine basketball where you don't bounce the ball and there's no backboard.
Oh, okay.
you're not supposed to run with the ball in basketball, really, although you can if you bounce it along, right? Netball, you have to stay static. And there are only two people, I think, who are allowed on any team to actually net the ball itself. You have a goal attack and a goal shoot.
Interesting.
But I don't know which came first.
I don't think it's that new of an idea. Like put the thing in the hole.
Jess, I was paying 100% attention to you, but also at the same time, I was briefly just looking up soccer idioms to see which ones there are. And of course, there are some, but I still don't think there are as many as there could be. We talk about scoring an own goal, for example, which is a footballing phenomenon that's quite hard to achieve in a lot of other sports, I would say. Park the bus is a tactic from football, it refers to putting all your defenders behind the ball, basically just not letting your opponents have any chance at goal. But we use that figuratively now to say, look, let's just play it ultra safe. And we could also talk about keeping a clean sheet as well, which actually itself sounds like it might be an idiom derived from not crapping the bed.
Oh, that's funny.
Actually, it does come from not letting in any goals, ultimately. So there are a few, but I still maintain that I think there are probably fewer than, given its cultural dominance, that we might expect to come out of football.
One of my favorite terms, while we're on the subject of like idioms, is I feel like alley-oop has kind of, I've seen it used outside of the context of basketball, but it's
right?
Slam dunks, air balls, alley-oops, and alley-oop is fun because it's from the French acrobatic exclamation alley-oop, which means let's go up.
Alley-oop. Oh yeah,
I like that one.
Okay, I like that too. Now I know that. That's great. I mean, it seems obvious now you've said it, but yeah, it's from acrobatics.
We also use like a layup, like an easy pat or an easy shot, more broadly than baseball, which is fun.
Just one last gross one from football. There's a term that I feel I should explain to you. There was a very successful manager called Sir Alex Ferguson, who led Manchester United to a lot of its success, basically. And he used to refer to the bit at the end of the match where you're just trying to hang on to a very tight lead. He used to refer to it as squeaky bum time. And this is caught on now as a phrase in Britain, certainly, for when things get a bit tense. I don't think anyone knows, and I don't think he's ever said whether he meant it's the sort of time where you sort of
is it like you're
fart
scrambling
out of stress?
Oh.
or I think it's more the idea that you're sort of clenching.
Yeah, I was thinking like
with the tension. I don't know. Anyway, we will never fully get to the bottom of squeaky bum time, perhaps. Although we could just ask
maybe
him.
Clenching and sweaty and like running the cheeks,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, why else do we watch?
Although he tended to stand up. Jess. Thanks for being a good sport, but I think it's time to blow the whistle on this one.
Oh, I love it. Let's call it and
sound the buzzer.
Tally up our scores. Sound the buzzer. Thanks
for watching this at times ridiculous episode of Words Unravelled. Can you tell we don't play a lot of sport? Maybe. It's been great to have you along, and we'll catch you in the next Words Unravelled.
See you during the next match.